This time on KEI Fabrication. Okay folks, today's the day. I'm trying to get rid of the Ford Explorer. Scrap is up like $20–$30 a ton, so take advantage of that. I don't need it sitting around any longer. I stripped some parts. I got the final brake rotor and brake caliper off, and a friend of mine needed the mirrors and the navigation indicator, and just like anybody that junks a vehicle, you use it as a dumpster to get rid of all the things that you've accumulated. So hopefully we'll get this up to the junkyard today, get some cash, and then we're going back to the junkyard to gather some spare parts for the Mazda to help get us through drag week. Well folks, I was hoping to unload the recording, but it was so busy here, stacked up out to the street, so they're super crazy busy, but there it sits. Well folks, we made it back. Hopefully you can see that. I got $253 for the partial Ford Explorer, and that makes my total return on between the catalytic converters and the vehicle itself $300 out of $350 that I spent on it. And I still have the rear end, obviously, still have a battery. I got the 4 wheels out of it, the front brake calipers, and a few other trinkets here and there. So I think we're well on our way to recouping all of the investment and ended up with a free rear end. Well folks, I just came back from the scrapyard, and while I was up there, they have a bunch of tires for sale for a pretty cheap price, so I went through the pile. I found a pair of 215/55s and 16, so they'll go on those new wheels, and they are just a touch smaller than the tires that are on there now. They're pretty close to the same size. I know it's tough to see. We'll see how they look on the rims for the front. And I wanted a little taller tire for the rear, so I grabbed some Coopers here, touring tires. I think these are 215/60, and they are almost exactly the same size as the tires that are on there, so the truck won't look much different, except for they'll be 16s and they'll all be on these wheels. So I'm going to take them to the tire shop on Monday and get them balanced and mounted, and at least when I get the spindles and the rear end in the truck, I'll have tires and wheels to put on. Well folks, I had the tire shop mount and balance my tires. I said this is going to be a junkyard build. I picked up these tires, as you know, at the junkyard for just under $20 a piece. And these, I hope, are the tires that are going to take us to Virginia and back. We're hoping to go to a swap meet tomorrow to maybe pick up some skinny fronts and look at some rims for the rear for drag slicks. So I can't wait to get these on the truck. Unfortunately, there's a lot of work to be done before I can put these wheels on the truck. I've got to get the rear end in, and I've got to get those bushings made for the front spindles so I can get my 5-lug Ford bolt pattern spindles on the Mazda spindles. So we're going to continue to pick away at that. Still haven't found a machine shop to make those spindles. We're going to try a couple of shops this week and see how that goes. Well, folks, I'm just rolling into the Stafford Motor Speedway where the spring swap meet is going on. It's one of the largest ones in the state of Connecticut, and we are up here to get some parts for the Mazda for drag week. We'll see what we have laying around out here. The swap meet takes up the entire speedway. It's pretty big. So we'll walk around, see what's available. And alright, folks, I just finished walking around the swap meet. It took me about 3.5 hours to walk around. I just unloaded my cart. The only thing I bought today was, I didn't even see it until the last minute. This is not a Brian Tooley cam. This box is from a Brian Tooley Stage 3 cam. The person took this Texas Speed and Performance Stage 2 cam out, put the Brian Tooley Stage 3 cam in. I got the matching set of valve springs. It's very low miles, and so I got a Texas Speed and Performance Stage 2 LS cam for $100 with the springs. So I am super excited. It's exactly the cam I wanted. Can't wait to put it in. Hey folks, today's material delivery day. I've got my 2-inch bar stock for the spindle bushings to adapt the wheel bearings from the Mazda to the Ford Crown Victoria. Got 2x4 box tubing that I'm going to utilize for the back brace on the 8.8 rear end. And I've got 2x3 by 1/8 wall. There is a section of the frame rail behind the rear axle that I'm going to redo on both sides on the Mazda. And this is going to be, the round tube is going to be my rear shock cross member for when I do the frame rails over again. So I got a full length of this, 12 feet of each of those, and 2 feet of bar stock, because I'm going to make up a bunch of those bushings in case I have a failure or in case anybody else wants to adapt their Mazda to Crown Victoria brakes. Okay folks, so what I did was when I scrapped that Suburban, I immediately took the cash from that and I am putting it into parts. This is a new pinion nut for the 8.8 rear end. This is a new crush sleeve. Part of the parts I ordered haven't shown up yet, but I've got new axle seals and a pinion seal. And I know that whenever you change the pinion seal and retorque this thing, you usually end up messing up the settings on the pinion versus ring gear backlash, so I want to make sure I get that right. These are the bolts that hold the cross shaft in for the spider gears. I ordered a couple of those. I was actually kind of impressed that the stuff that's coming out of Rock Auto is Yukon gear. These bolts here are like $1.89 a piece or something. So the other thing I'm doing is brand new axle seals. I ordered a spare. We're trying to build our arsenal of spares for drag week. So I've got extra seals and bearings coming. I have one oxygen sensor that is periodically dropping out on the Mazda, so I ordered 2. These are the cheapest ones Rock Auto had available, so I figured I'd give them a try. I've seen a bunch of warnings, you know, don't go with the cheap ones, but We're trying to do this on a budget, and we're going to experiment with these. Rear brake pads for the rear end, and this is an entire brake hardware kit for the emergency brake setup on the 8.8 rear. As a matter of fact, these should be the shoes for the, nope, these are the pads. So what's also coming that isn't here yet is the brake shoes for the emergency brake, 2 emergency brake cables, and a couple other miscellaneous things to get the rear end in the truck. So as soon as those parts arrive, we'll finalize the rear end, and I hope to get that thing installed real soon. This is just another rotor. Alright folks, so what we did here is this is the rest of the parts coming in for the rear end rebuild. I've ordered, again, axle seals. I got a spare. This is the pinion seal. Kind of impressed. Motorcraft parts. AC Delco brand. These are the rear brake shoes for the emergency brake. And these are the emergency brake cables. I am going to marry the Ford brake cable to the Mazda brake cable. The way the Fords worked, and the GMs too actually, they have one long cable and one short cable, and they run up the driver's side to meet with the brake pedal. Mazda has the pull handle in the middle, so they're equal length brake cables. So I ordered 2 of the Ford of the same side. They're the longest cables. They actually give you the measurements of the length on Rock Auto, so you're able to estimate the size that would work for you. So all good stuff. There's no excuses now. I've got just about everything I need to put the rear end in the truck. I stopped at Harbor Freight, grabbed a El Cheapo grinder. I used to buy their $20 to $30 one with a bayonet switch because I really like the bayonet in terms of safety. And got some cutoff wheels, and I ran out of gloves. So again, I'm not embarrassed to buying stuff from Rock Auto. The stuff is quality parts. We got Revestis name brand, we got Motorcraft. You saw some of the stuff from Yukon Gear. It's National Seals for the pinion seal. And you guys also saw from my Swapmeet video, I've got my Texas Speed and Performance Stage 2 cam. Now the really cool thing about this Stage 2 cam, it is the more aggressive of the Stage 2 cam. It is the 112 lobe separation, and it's the higher lift cam. Very happy about that. We'll be able to extend the range of this motor a little bit more with this cam. I'm just hoping that I don't need to go with a 3000 stall converter or something to that effect, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. So that's the end of the acquisition stuff. The goal for today is to get that rear end in this truck from the very least, just to mock it up. I need to do pinion angle, and I need to get the drive shaft on order so I can have it maybe driving with the 8.8 in a few days. So another thing I bought, which, you know, I was up at the junkyard, I was looking for another one of these, and they all kind of have that same issue with the rust. This was like 12 bucks, $13 from Rock Auto. I just, you know, how can you not buy it? So I bought the differential cover gasket. It's a Felpro brand. Again, inexpensive. So I went with the gasket because I'm not going to fill it full of gasket maker. When we're out on the road, if we have an issue during drag week, I'd rather be dealing with a gasket than RTV. We can always use the RTV on the side of the road if the gasket gives up. So trying to think ahead for the plan. I do have spare cross shaft for the rear end and a spare, oops, that was close, spare cross shaft for the rear end and spider gears and things like that. So we hope to go with a few more spares, even a spare gear set and a spare carrier. So we'll see. All right, time to get to work. Next time on KEI Fabrication.